Shalom, everybody that's joining us on live YouTube or through the app. It is good to be home, good to be back. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. Was able to get some color, eat some good food. I love the Caribbean, and we had a great, great time, and I cannot wait to go back. But, of course, as it usually is, we came back, and I sat next to somebody who had a nasty cold, and you circulate the air in the airplane, and before you know it, you got it too. And so we've had the cooties all week long. So, but hey, tis the season. And actually, we got a call from quite a few people. A lot of people are sick in our fellowship, so it's going around, all sorts of things. But we're here. We're glad to be here. We did miss you guys, though. We absolutely missed you. But it was good to get away. It was really, really good to get away. We needed it. We got a chance to recharge our batteries. Sorry we couldn't do Wednesday Bible study, but I promise you we will be here this upcoming week. I know in the world around us, I think that is Wednesday Christmas Eve? Is the 24th or the 25th? I don't remember. Is it the 24th? We're still going to have Bible study that night, and of course our Friday. So if you can, join us. We're going to be finishing up, or really moving on the Daniel 70 weeks. Got some real interesting stuff to share with you, some alternate ways of looking at it that I think will open up some eyes to some things. But if you checked out last week's message, which was a child born unto us, or a child given unto us, it was really sort of the precursor for today. Obviously, we are in that season in the world around us where people are at least thinking about Messiah, as well as, so for our Jewish brethren, they're thinking about Hanukkah. For our Christian brethren, of course, they're thinking about Christmas. I'm just happy. Listen, if people are thinking about Messiah, I'm fine with that. But we'll get more into that in just a second. If you do have the notes, they're out there. Our opening verse for this morning comes from the Gospel according to Luke, and chapter 1. And starting at verse 34 and a couple of other verses. And it says the following. And Miriam said to the messenger, meaning angel, Gabriel, and Miriam said to the messenger, how shall this be, since I do not know a man? And the angel answering said to her, the set apart spirit shall come upon you, and the power of the Most High shall overshadow you. And for that reason, the set-apart one born of you shall be called the Son of Elohim. And see, Elisheva, your relative, she has also conceived a son in her old age. And this is now the 6th month to her who was called barren, because with Elohim no matter shall be impossible. The topic and the title of the message for this morning is the coming seed. The coming seed. You guys know the prayer here. If you know it at home, please pray with us. Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that is willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Amen. Okay. So, as I said before, obviously this is a season for the world around us, for many, many people, where they're at least thinking about the story of the birth of the Messiah. And as I said, this is really, I wouldn't say a part two, but it certainly goes along with what we talked about last week of the purpose, one of the purposes. You know what? It's incredible that there's not just one story in the scripture. It is layer upon layer upon layer of story. It's layer upon layer upon layer of truth. And just because you figure out one layer, that doesn't mean that there aren't others still deeper truths to understand. And hopefully that's what we'll be able to do for this morning concerning the story of the birth of the Messiah. The opening verses that we started with, of course, is the declaration given to Miriam by the angel Gabriel that she is going to be with child. Very, very unusual because she is a woman who is not even married yet. Betrothed, yes, but she's not married yet. It hasn't been official. and yet before her marriage, she is found to be with child. And you know the story. Of course, Joseph, finding this out, wants to put her away quietly rather than make a big thing out of it, of which she could definitely find herself in a lot of trouble. And the angel, of course, then speaks to Joseph to tell him that that which is in her, just like he told Miriam, is of the Spirit. It is conceived of the Spirit. So she is a woman who is a maiden. Now, a maiden in that day, the word is alma in the Hebrew. It means virgin. The word in the Greek is virgin. There is certainly, dispute among scholars as to, does it mean virgin? Does it just mean maiden? Well, the word means a woman who is of marrying age. And of course, in that day, if you are of marrying age, you were supposed to be a virgin. If you weren't, that would be an issue and it'd be difficult to get married. So either way, this is a very, very unique situation. She is a woman who has not been with a man, and yet she is found to have child before the wedding. This is important because everything that we see in the scripture, actually everything we see all around us, as we've talked about before, and I know you guys are fully aware of, everything here is a shadow and a type. Everything that happens on this earth is really Abba's way of helping us understand a bigger story, like the temple, like the tabernacle, like the sacrifices. They were real. They were part of history, but they were really a shadow. They were a type. They were something that we do here, but that helps us understand a larger truth later. And believe it or not, so is this story. Though it is real, though it happens, though it is an account, it is also a type and a shadow to help us understand a bigger story. An earthly shadow to help us understand a spiritual or heavenly reality. Messiah is called the seed. Now she, of course, we are told that it is the spirit of Elohim that comes upon her, and that is how she conceives and, of course, bears forth the Messiah. Messiah is called the seed throughout the book. And I know you guys know this, but I want to go through just a couple of these so that we can just make the point for those that may be watching at home. Here's just some verses about the coming seed. And it's not by accident that the word seed is used. Now, today we probably wouldn't use the word seed. We'd say heir or son or daughter or child. But it's written in our text all throughout the book as seed. And I don't think it is that it's just haphazard, but I think that it means something. So here's just a couple. Right off in Genesis chapter 3:15, this is the whole beginning story. Genesis 3:15 says, as Abba is speaking to the serpent and to the woman and the man, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed, that is the seed of the serpent, and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. Genesis chapter 15, verse 3. It says, and Abraham said, see, you have given me no seed, and see, one born in my house is my heir. Also in that chapter, verse 5, it says, and he brought him, meaning Abraham, outside and said, look now toward the heavens and count the stars if you are able to count them. And he said to him, so are your seed. Genesis chapter 22 and verse 18. Speaking to Abraham as he offers up Isaac on Mount Moriah, it says, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So every time, at least in all of the Old Testament verses, that it's speaking of the coming one, he is referred to as the seed. Here's 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12, which comes from last week's message. This is the promise given to King David. When your days are filled and you rest with your fathers, I shall raise up your seed after you, who comes from your inward parts, and shall establish his kingdom. He does build a house for my name, and I shall establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I am to be his father, and he is to be my son. so that we have no doubt that all of these verses are verses about the coming seed, that is the Messiah, here's the way the writers of the New Testament understood this. Luke chapter 1 and verse 31. And see, you shall conceive, and I put the PDP in there just so it stands out, you shall conceive a seed in your womb, and shall give birth to a son, and shall call his name Yeshua or Yahusha, for he shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Most High. And Elohim shall give him the throne of his father David, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and there shall be no end to his reign. I want you to see, just that verse in Luke is a fulfillment of what we just read in 2 Samuel. Messiah is the seed promised to King David. He is the seed promised to Abraham. He is the seed promised to the woman and the man in the garden. And here's Galatians chapter 3, verse 16, another one I know you guys are familiar with. But here is Saul confirming all of this, saying, but the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. He does not say, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed who is the Messiah. So the seed is the Messiah. From cover to cover, that is a term that is used to reference the coming one. He is the seed. Now, as I said just a couple of minutes ago, we are in that time of the year around us when certainly our Christian brethren are thinking about the holiday called Christmas, or the holiday, the celebration, the memorial of the birth of the Messiah, which this is not a message of its accuracy or whether it is or it isn't the date or with the Magi there or not. We've gone over all of that stuff before. I don't want to rehash all of that. That's not really the issue for today. We're familiar with that. And for our Jewish brethren, the celebration of Hanukkah just began just a few days ago. And of course, I'm sure you guys have all seen the tragedy that occurred in Australia in the midst of, or the beginning of, the celebration of Hanukkah. Just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. But the celebration of Hanukkah, which is, and of course that's not a menorah that's up on the picture there. That's a Hanukkah. There's a difference. A menorah is not a 9-branch candlestick. This is something after the whole Maccabee story, a holiday that comes up, or a holiday that is made, a festival that is made afterward, not something that Moses gave. Neither one of these are something that Moses gave. They have nothing to do with the instructions given to us in the Torah. But it is the celebration of a temple that has been desecrated and then renewed. And of course, in renewing it, it is lighting the menorah, and of course the story around it, whether it be true or not, is that the oil that was needed for the lamp was provided for however long it was, 9 days or 8 days. Again, true or not really the topic for this morning. Only that there are both our Christian brethren that are thinking about the light of the world, that is the seed, and our Jewish brethren who are thinking about the light of the temple after it has been desecrated. Here's just a verse, John chapter 8 and verse 12. It says, therefore, Yeshua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall by no means walk in darkness, but possess the light of life. John chapter 1 and verse 4. In him, that is in the seed, was life, and the life was the light of men. You know, there's a portion in the Sermon on the Mount where the Master declares that everything that is spoken in secret will one day be shouted from the rooftops. That is all the stuff that Abba is going to tell us. Everything that's a mystery, everything that's unknown, at some point we'll be able to understand it. And when we understand it, what are we supposed to do with it? Tell people. Shout it out. Let it be known. Let people understand what it is. Moses says the same thing in Deuteronomy, that the secret things, the mysteries, the things that are not known to us but are in the Torah, they belong to Elohim. And at some point, the expectation was Elohim will reveal to us those things. But he goes on to say, but what we do know about the Torah, we are to do, we are to keep. We'll do it until we know more or we understand more. They both mean the same thing. There are mysteries that we just, at some point in the history of this story, we didn't know. But then there's information later on that we do get, we do understand. Whether they understood in the garden when he said that the seed of the woman shall crush the serpent, if they understood what the whole, I doubt they understood what the whole story was. We understand so much more now than they did then. Why? Because we are so far past that, we have the ability to look back in time and see the entire story. Well, we also live in a time not just of understanding spiritual mysteries, but also understanding even the mysteries of life. I want to show you something. You guys may have seen this. I know I've made reference to this before. But I'm going to show you just a quick little video. It's only like a 30-second video about something that was only discovered or only actually recorded about 2-3 years ago was the first time that this was recorded. It is a video, a telescopic video of the seed. Now, let's do biology lesson real quick here. When we speak of seed from a biological perspective, we're talking about a man's seed that enters into the wife, the woman, and at the conjunction of the sperm, the seed, and the egg, life begins. Now, I know in our culture there's this whole big argument as to whether it does or it doesn't, is it alive or isn't it alive? To me, that is not just an issue of when life begins or not. It is a declaration against Father, against his story. And everything on this earth, don't forget, is a shadow. It is a type. It is a lesson to help us understand an earthly truth, but also to understand a spiritual or heavenly truth. So here is a video of the moment of conception. It's absolutely marvelous. Let me explain it first, and then I'll show you. Once the seed breaks the barrier of the egg, there is a light explosion that occurs. When life starts, it starts with light. And it's not just one explosion. It's actually really, I'm only going to show you the picture of the one, but they say this keeps going on for a while. Now, scientifically, what they say is these are zinc atoms that we're seeing light up. Whether that is or isn't, and it probably is, isn't the issue. The issue is when life begins, when the seed enters, how does life begin? Light. In him was the life and the light of men. He is the seed. So here, take a look at this. And you'll see the moment that it happens. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? I want to see that again. One more time. The moment that life begins, here on earth, there is light. As the seed enters, there is light. Everything is a shadow and a type to help us understand something else. Number 6 on your notes, number 6. No, number 5 on your notes, I'm sorry. Number 5 on your notes. Everything is a shadow and a type. Now, we've talked about this before. This shouldn't be new to any of us. But shadows and types aren't necessarily literal. They don't always encompass everything about the earthly doesn't always encompass everything about the spiritual that there is. For instance, Messiah, of course, is the son of Elohim. Okay, we've got that. He's also the husband. Okay, we've got that. He's also a father of children. Okay, we've got that. He's also the lamb. And he's also the bullock. And he's also the red heifer. And we can go on and on and on. He's the Passover lamb. There are multiple types and shadows here on the earth, each one just giving us a portion or a picture, a small picture of a much, much bigger story. And what we need to do is learn all of the types and all of the shadows and be able to put it all together to understand the entire story. So there are sometimes in doing this, there are things that may seem contradictory. How can one thing, if he's one thing, how can he be another thing? People say all the time, if he's Elohim, how can he pray to Elohim? That seems to be contradictory. It's not, but it seems to be contradictory on the surface. Shadows and types are not necessarily here on the earth, literal of everything that it is a shadow and type of, but may just be a piece or a portion. They are Abba's way of giving us the best understanding in our limited ability to understand things, to understand. Let me say it another way, because I'll probably confuse you with that. There is no way for us to fully wrap our minds around who he is. So what he has done is he has given us things here on the earth that picture or mimic in some way, maybe not completely, but in some way that encompass the truth of who he is and what he's doing and what the story is. It doesn't, not everything tells us everything, but it tells us something about him. It is the best way for us to begin to understand. Now, the basic story of course, Miriam being told she's going to have a child, a woman who's not married yet is going to have a child. The entire story of the Bible, we know as a shadow and type, is a story of a father and of a son and of a bride and of children. Those are earthly examples to help us understand the bigger story. Father has given us fatherhood, he's given us sonhood, he's given us a wedding, a bride, and he's given us children that come by life, that is the seed entering and the spark of life coming, all as a shadow to tell us what the bigger story is really all about. Now, I know this may rub our Gen Xers a little bit raw, or maybe the progressive left, this might rub them a little bit raw, but this story is a patriarchal story. Father has chosen to give us this story in a way that we could understand it in what we would call a patriarchal story, meaning it's from the perspective of the father. Or maybe even expand a little bit, it's from the perspective of manhood. That is the father and the son. Again, I know that could rub some people the wrong way, especially in our culture today, down with the patriarchy, which again, just like if that video we saw is confirmation, is earthly confirmation of what the scripture has always said, in him was life and his life, in him was life, and that was the light of men. If that is true, then that helps me understand why there are so many people who want abortion, because men love darkness to kill life. Now you say, well, that's maybe stretching it. No, that's what's going on in us here on an earthly example. It's bigger, it's deeper than just saying, well, light means to do good and darkness means to do bad. No, it's much, much bigger than that. In the same way, not realizing or not understanding that this is a patriarchal story. This is about the patriarch. It's about the father. It's about the son. And we need to understand that and not be offended with it, because if we're offended with it, we're going to miss the whole story. Today, of course, that's not always the case in our modern culture. We try to make it a matriarchal society. It's not. That's not the story. That's not the shadow. That's the antitype. That is rebelling against what the shadow that he has given us actually should be. And if you rebel against us, then we will never understand what the bigger story is all about. It's from the father's perspective. However, if you have a father, and you have a son, and this is an earthly example, on the earth, you cannot have a father or a son without a what? Without a mother. Now remember, these are earthly examples, earthly terms to help us understand a spiritual reality. I'm about to say some things that may make you think differently or expand our horizons, but I don't want you in any way to think that the terms that we are about to use are the actual terms that apply 100% to Father, because he is more than Father. The Son is more than the Son. But that's the only way down here, the only language we have down here to understand what that's all about. Maybe when we get there, as Saul said, now we see dimly as through a dark glass, but when we get there, we shall see clearly. We'll understand the whole perspective, the whole situation. Maybe because our minds are limited here because of the sin that we're in, I'm not sure, maybe possibly. But either way, the example of Father and Son are earthly terms to help us understand a spiritual reality. But as I said, without a mother, without that feminine side, even the concept of gender is not really something that we can 100% apply to our Elohim. And I'm not saying I'm not being some, gender neutral, bi, whatever, trans, no. That's taking it way too far. But he doesn't really describe, the term he cannot describe who Father is, though he reveals himself on an earthly term as he or Father. Nor can Son, who is he, truly encompass the entire meaning of who the Son is, but it's for us to understand. Gender is our way of understanding us here to understand something bigger there. So don't take the gender stuff way to the left, nor be offended with what I'm about to say. As I said, this is a patriarchal story told from the father's perspective. So what about the mother? Just from a biblical perspective, what is the role of mother in the Bible? What is the concept? What is the teaching? What is the earthly shadow that we get about motherhood? Well, mother is a helper. Mother is a teacher. Mother is a caregiver. Mother is the one who raises the children. Mother is the one who is there to comfort the children. Throughout most of history, that has been true until just very recently in our own human history. And without mother, there is no child. There are no children. And yet this story is told to us from the perspective of the man or the male figure. Adam, we are told in the beginning, is made in the image of Elohim. We did a study on this just a while back, that Adam, even though he is Adam, in Adam, this is seems a little bit crazy at first, but it makes total sense. Even though he is Adam, in Adam was both what we would call male and female. Now again, this is not non-binary, forget all that stuff. This is the story. When he pulls the woman out from him, he says, "This is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh." Together, they are called Adam. That's who they were when they were a single individual. And as she is taken out of him, she is called woman, which is the womb of man, out of man. And he is called Adam, man. And of course, she gets the name Eve, and he bears the name Adam. She then becomes the mother of all living, a helpmate to him. This gives us the story of Elohim, because Adam is made in Elohim's image. So what is Elohim teaching us? What does this earthly example have to do with him? Out of him, a unified being, comes the Son. And not just the Son, the Spirit. Together they are echad. And they've always been together. Not in a way that Adam was with the woman, because that's an earthly example and cannot totally encompass that heavenly truth. But it gives us a window of understanding this heavenly truth. Eve comes out of Adam. Just like Messiah and the Spirit are part of Elohim. And together they are echad. They are one. They are unified. They are singular in purpose, though they may be individual in identity. They are singular. Adam now has this woman with him, and to remember when they join back together in sexual union, they are echad again. That's what it means to be echad, to be in sexual union. Why? What happens when we are in sexual union with that partner of ours, who is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh? The product is supposed to be children. It's supposed to be fruitful and multiply. Out of the union called echad comes the spark of life and the beginning of children. And the process then gets told over and over and over and over again as an earthly example here. And we're only figuring out now that spark is actually literal, not just symbolic. It really, really happens. So, that concept of echad, bearing children, to come together as one physically, is echad. And to bear children is the product of it, the fruit of it. In Genesis 4:1, so it takes, just simple biology again, not telling you something you don't know. It takes a man and a woman, a male and a female, to bear a child. Here on earth. Here on earth. That's the pattern we're given. We're not just talking about earth, we're talking about there, heaven, the heavens, the spiritual realm. This is a patriarchal story. Here's Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. This is the beginning of genealogies. And it says, and Adam knew Eve, his wife. I'm not giving you the whole verse, just that little piece, because out of Adam and Eve, then comes Cain. Verse 17 says, and Cain knew his wife. Do you notice something different in those verses? That first verse, 4, verse 1, it says, and Adam knew his wife, and it doesn't just call her wife, it calls her by her name, Eve. And then verse 17, once Cain comes on the scene, it says, and Cain knew his wife. And then later on, when it speaks of Adam again, it says, and Adam knew his wife. What's not mentioned now? Her name. She's not mentioned. Is she there? Well, of course. Could Adam conceive without her? Of course not. And you'll notice, if you look at all of the genealogies, here's Genesis chapter 5, verse 3. It says, and Adam lived 130 years, and he brought forth a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And every genealogy that you see after that is always the name of the Father and the name of the Son. And the name of the Father and the name of the Son. So-and-so begat so-and-so. So-and-so begat so-and-so. So-and-so begat so-and-so. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And the one thing that you'll notice when you read the genealogies is what's missing? The mother. Is she there? Well, of course she is. Or else so-and-so would not have begotten so-and-so. She's there, but she's not always mentioned, though her presence is absolutely vital to there being any continuance of life. When you get to Messiah's genealogy, this is Matthew, I think, chapter 1. I don't know if it's Matthew or it's Luke. I forgot to put which one it is. But when it goes through the genealogy, there are times the woman is mentioned, but I'm saying like 99.9% of all the Hebrew, all the Jewish genealogies have no women in them. It's so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so. Because it's a patriarchal story told to us from that perspective. When you get to Messiah's genealogy, there are 5 women that are mentioned. Tamar, which is not a real good story when you read the story of Tamar. Rahab, which is, I guess it's an iffy story, depending upon what her actual work was, her employment was. Ruth, all right, that's a better story, but she's a Moabitess, which is actually probably not a really good thing. Bathsheba, you know the story of Bathsheba, she gets taken. And then Miriam, who is actually the one who bears Messiah. 5 women mentioned in the genealogy of Mashiach. Just as a side note, 5 often throughout the scripture is known as a number of grace, of Abba's grace. So is it that women don't appear, that the matriarch has no significance? No, not at all. It's just that this is a patriarchal story. And when we do get to Miriam, what becomes her story? She is found with child before she's married, which from a cultural perspective puts her in the same position as Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba. There's a little cloud there. We know there's not because of the circumstances as to why she is, but just from a surface view, that's a little bit iffy. At least that's why Joseph wanted to put her away quietly until the angel speaks to him. Here's Matthew chapter 22 and verse 2. Now, we've read this a gazillion times. This is a story about family. It's a story about a father and a son. But you cannot have father and son without what? You cannot have masculine as an earthly example without what? Feminine. Here is Matthew chapter 22, verse 2. You guys know this. It's the story of the wedding feast. The kingdom of the heaven is like a man. I put in there in the PDP, father. A king who made a wedding feast for his son. And you can go on and you can read the rest of the story. We're going to talk about this on Wednesdays. Eventually, we're going to get into the story and its relationship to prophecy. But just take that verse by itself. The kingdom of heaven is about a father who wants a wedding feast for his son. What's missing in this story from a human perspective? What's missing? The mother and the bride. Neither of the feminine characters appear in, they're there, I guess, by implication, because the father cannot throw a wedding feast for the son unless there is a bride who is for the son. And the father cannot have the son unless there is a mother to the son from an earthly perspective. I'm going to keep saying that. This is an earthly perspective. Remember, we're limited here. It's limited understanding. It's our way of understanding a bigger truth. But this is the story. Messiah is telling us this is the story of the kingdom of heaven. A father wants a wedding feast for his son. So, with that in mind, here is number 7 on your notes. Or number 6. I'm sorry, I have an extra one here. Number 6 on your notes. So in what we call, or what is traditionally called, the Christmas story, we went over this last week, a promise is given for a coming son, a seed. The same seed that we're reading about in Genesis, the same seed of Abraham, the same seed promised to King David, that same seed. And here in Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 11, concerning that seed, it says, ask a sign for yourself. This is Yah speaking to King Ahaz, who's afraid the throne is going to be taken away and taken by the northern house and by the Assyrians. So Abba tells him, ask a sign for yourself from Yahweh, your Elohim. Make it deep. Now I'm putting the PDP there, so hopefully this begins to all come together. Ask a sign. So if Abba, for some reason, some odd reason, were to speak to you and say, I promised you A, B, C, D, here's how you'll know. Ask me anything. Ask me for a sign. What would you ask for? And he says, make it as deep as you want, or make it as high as you want. Let's say that another way. Ask a sign for yourself from Yah, your Elohim. Make it deep, earthly, or request it and make it high, heavenly. Ask whatever. What would you ask for? I have absolutely, here's my sign. Let me win the lotto. At least 20 million. So I get at least 10 million back. Now, obviously, that would not be a really good sign, sort of selfish to ask for. But I could come up with something, I guess. Of course, Ahaz doesn't ask a sign. This certainly upsets Abba. So what does Yahweh do? Verse 14. He says, therefore, Yah himself shall give you a sign. PDP, I put in there. Remember, the PDP is just me giving you commentary. He shall give you a sign. A deep sign, an earthly sign, and a high sign, a heavenly sign. Look, the Alma, the virgin, the woman, the maiden of marrying age, conceives and gives birth to a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel. Now, we know this on every Christmas card that's out there. It's all over the place. It's on TV now. You see it. It's out there. There's no doubt when you read the gospel stories, this verse is in reference to the coming Messiah, which is an earthly sign. But he said to ask either deep or ask high. Ask earthly or ask heavenly. He's willing to give any sign, or all signs, or a big sign to prove that what he says is true. Here's my question. Who actually gave birth? Heaven or earth? Which sign actually came? An earthly sign or a heavenly sign? The quick answer is both. That's a sign. He said ask as high or as low, and Abba gave a sign that is both high and is both low. A sign that is both heavenly and a sign that is both earthly. And the earthly sign is always a shadow and a type to get us to understand the bigger picture. That an Alma shall conceive before she is married and shall bear a child. Here's Revelation chapter 12. So we know the earthly sign already, right? Miriam has a child. She's found with child before the actual wedding ceremony. The betrothal is there, but the wedding ceremony hasn't occurred. She's found with child. And of course, the child is Messiah. That's the earthly sign. That's a fulfillment of this verse. And the gospel writers tell us that that's a fulfillment of this verse. But here's another fulfillment that the gospel writers also tell us is a fulfillment of this verse. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 1. And a great sign, a great what? Sign was seen in the heaven, a woman. That word for woman is in the Greek, it means wife. And it's 1135. You guys can look that up yourselves. I forgot what the actual word is, but you guys can look that up yourselves. It means a wife. So here's a wife clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And she bore a male child who was to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught away to Elohim and to his throne. Where is this sign? From the heavens. Now, we look at this and people, if you're going to interpret this, people say, well, it's actually a sign or it's a symbol of what went on with Miriam on earth. Absolutely. That's the earthly part of it. But this is heaven. And this is a sign. This happens in heaven. Heaven births a son that appears as an earthly sign from a woman who isn't married yet and has it. Both signs happen at the same time. A heavenly sign high and a deep sign low on the earth. Everybody with me so far? I know we're going around the mountain quite a few times, but it's so important. I'm telling you, it's going to come together. Both of them happen at the same time. Here's Matthew chapter 1, verse 18. Here's the earthly sign. But the birth of Yeshua Messiah was as follows. After his mother Miriam was engaged to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be pregnant from the set-apart spirit. This is important. How was she pregnant? By the Spirit. Where's the Spirit from? From on high. She was found to be pregnant by the set-apart Spirit. Verse 20, the latter part of it, B. Do not be afraid to take Miriam as your wife, for that which is in her is brought forth by the set-apart Spirit. The seed that came into Miriam comes from where? On high. Where there is a woman on high who is also pregnant. And now we see the earthly revelation of it. Everybody with me so far? I hope you are. Messiah was born from above, from on high, but he was also born from below or from the deep at the same time. Why? This is important. This is so important to understanding the story. He had to be born of both because he's coming here to claim a bride. The kingdom of heaven is like a father who wants a wedding feast for his son. So there's got to be someone to birth him, because that's the example we get here on the earth. Then there's got to be a bride that he's going to marry that's going to be his, another female character. Again, don't mix gender that is here with there. It's only our example for us to begin to understand it. But that's the story that we're given. And yet the female parts of the story don't seem to be emphasized. The father and son seem to be emphasized, which stays in line with everything else we read in the text. So-and-so begets, so-and-so begets, so-and-so begets, so-and-so. And every now and then, the woman's name is thrown in until we get to Miriam. He's born from above, but he's also born from below. If he's going to take a bride, if he's going to be part of us, who we are all born from what? Below. Our natural birth comes from below. If he is going to be born from below, if he's going to be like us, he has to be born from below. But he's also born from above. Number 7 on your notes. Or number 8. I keep being one behind here. Number 8 on your notes. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 19. I'm sure you guys have read these things before. Me and Max are going to talk about more of this upcoming Friday. Those weird commandments that you read, you say, everybody says, well, the Torah is not for us, so we don't have to pay attention to this anymore. No, you're missing the whole concept. Leviticus 19:19. Guard my laws. Do not let your livestock mate with another kind. Do not sow your field with mixed seed. And do not put a garment woven of 2 sorts of thread upon you. Weird commandments, right? You can't have wool and linen. Make sure your animals don't, different animals, don't try to mate them together. A horse and a donkey, you can't mate them together. We do. Basically, he's saying no genetic splicing, no hybrids, don't do any of that. Everything has to be of like kind. So if we're to be the children, which we're supposed to be the children, because when you read the rest of Revelation 12, it says the children of the woman, the serpent goes after her children. Who are her children? Those who keep the commandments of Yah and have the testimony of Yeshua. Well, if we're his children, we must be of like kind. That's what these weird commandments are all about. Abba's telling us we have to be of like kind to even be part of this story. But the way that we are now, we're not of like kind. Or the way that we were, we're not of like kind. Here is just some analogies for you. So there's evidently, I say wife, in the heavens who gives birth. Or at least a female character of the heavens who gives birth. And there is an Alma of the earth who gives birth. And they give birth to the seed, the son. There is a bride who is a wife or a wife-to-be in the heavens. And there is a bride who is a wife-to-be here on the earth. Wherever there is an earthly example, there is a heavenly reality. While not mentioned overtly, they are there. Here's John chapter 1 and verse 12. But as many as received him. So this is right after in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. In him was the light, and the light was the light of men, stuff that we talked about with the picture of the egg. But as many as received him, to them he gave authority to become children of Elohim. Which means we were not what? Children of Elohim. We were of a different kind. And two different kinds cannot make children, cannot be together. To those believing in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the desire of the flesh, which is earthly, nor of the desire of man, which is earthly, but of Elohim, which is heavenly. Here's more of that, and I hope this clears it up. John chapter 3, verse 3. Yeshua answered. This is the conversation with Nicodemus. Yeshua answered and said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born from above. Hold on. Because normally we read this as born again. And it can mean born again, but it also means born from above. Where's Messiah born from? Above and below. We are all born from where? Below. We are not of like kind. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born from above, meaning born from heaven, or born of the Spirit, he is unable to see the kingdom of Elohim. Nicodemus said to him, how is a man able to be born when he is old? Is he able to enter into his mother's womb a second time to be born? I don't think he's being literal here. I think he's just asking a hyperbolic question. So we understand something has to happen. Verse 5, Yeshua answered, and this is a truly, truly statement. Truly, truly, I say unto you, unless one is born of the water that is being spoken of here is not baptism, though we must go through the waters of baptism. He's talking about our earthly birth. All of us were born of the water. The moment the seed enters the egg and the spark of life begins, we are engulfed in what? Water. And we stay there for 40 weeks, 9 months-ish, until one day your mom tells your dad, my what just broke? My water just broke, which means who's coming out? The baby. You were born, we were all born of water. Or to say more accurately, we were born of the flesh, of the will of man, of the image given on earth that reunites Adam and the woman, male and female, in sexual union to make them echad in order to bring forth a child. We were all born of water. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water, the earthly womb and the spirit, the heavenly womb, he is unable to enter into the kingdom of Elohim. Why? Why can't we enter into the kingdom of Elohim if we are just born of water? Because Mashiach is born of both water and he's born of the Spirit. And for us to be of like kind, we also must be what? Born of the earth, but also born from above. Oh, come on. That's deep. Come on. And if you're not, you cannot see. You can't really wrap your mind around the kingdom of Elohim. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless the one is born of the water, the earthly womb, and the spirit, the heavenly womb, he is unable to enter the kingdom of Elohim. That which is born of water, or that which is born of the flesh, is flesh. And that which is born of the spirit is spirit. Messiah was born of both. Ask anything from the heavens on high or from the earth below. Ask a sign. What's the sign? A woman who is not yet married. Pay attention to this. A woman who is not yet married is going to bring forth children. A child, in Miriam's case, children in another woman's case. Both before they are married. Every earthly example has a spirit. Wait, are you telling me there's a woman, or at least a female entity in heaven, who bears children before she's married? Yes. Yes. That's exactly what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that the earthly story of the birth of Messiah is a shadow of the heavenly story. The word ruach, spirit, this is just a definition. Grammatically, it's feminine. Ruach is a feminine noun, so it takes feminine forms in Hebrew grammar, as noted by Genesis 1:2, where the spirit hovers in the feminine form. I'm not telling you the spirit's a woman. I'm telling you that those are earthly genders to help us understand heavenly realities. What was Messiah born of? How did Miriam conceive? The Spirit. How are you born again? The Spirit. Born. Who births here on earth? The masculine or the feminine? Well, the feminine. But they all start off as echad, together. Born from above. Here's number, I don't even know what is it, number 9, 8? I keep getting these mixed up. 8. Here's Galatians chapter 4, verse 22. This is Saul speaking about the same thing. Say to me, you who wish to be under the Torah. Now here's the PDP. You who wish to be under the Torah, or who wish to gain spiritual birth. Because what's the purpose, at least from a Judaism perspective, of keeping the Torah? To enter eternity. To enter that, where Messiah says, if you're not, you could be born of the water, but if you're not born of the Spirit, you can't even see the kingdom. And he even questions Nicodemus and says, you're a teacher of Israel and you don't know this stuff? This should have been known to them. So if you are only walking in the birth of the water, and it doesn't matter how good you do it, will you ever see the kingdom of heaven? No. No, you can't. You can't. So say to me, you who wish to be under the Torah, to gain spiritual birth, do you not hear the Torah? For it has been written that Abraham had 2 sons, one by a female servant, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the female servant was born according to the flesh, or as John says, according to the water. And he of the free woman, meaning Sarah, through the promise or through the Spirit. This is allegorical. This is a shadow. This is a type. This is an earthly example of a spiritual reality. This is allegorical, for these are 2 covenants. One indeed from Mount Sinai, which brings forth slavery, which is Hagar. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is. The Jerusalem he's referring to was the Jerusalem of the first century. The Jerusalem that crucified the Messiah. The Jerusalem that rejected him. The Jerusalem that went after all the disciples and apostles. That's the Jerusalem he's referring to. Why is she considered Hagar? Because Hagar was born of the flesh. Abraham received the promise through the Spirit. He's going to have a son. Sarah's the one he's going to have it through. But when that doesn't come, he takes it into his own hands, and he has a son born of water, of his own efforts. And that son shall not be heir with the son of the promise. He's telling us the same thing he just said to Nicodemus. The female servant was born according to the flesh, the water, and he of the free woman through the promise, the Spirit. This is allegorical, for these are 2 covenants. I wrote all this already. Let me do it again. Verse 25, for this is Hagar, is Mount Sinai in Arabia, which corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is, I put the PDP in there, now is a harlot, though she was a bride. The Jerusalem below is a harlot, though she was a bride. And because she is a harlot, the matrimony that was set for her is now canceled. And a renewed covenant of marriage is made. She's the harlot. She's the people trying to gain, through the efforts of solely the Torah, spiritual birth. She's a harlot from a bride, and is in slavery with her children. Why? Because they walk according to the flesh. Verse 26. But, guys, look. Verse 26. But the Jerusalem above. Wait. There's another Jerusalem. Well, what was the Jerusalem down here? A bride to be. She hadn't got married yet. She was a bride to be. That's the Jerusalem down here. She's in slavery. The Jerusalem up there is not in slavery. But the Jerusalem above, that is of the Spirit, the covenant, and the giver of the seed, that is the Spirit is the giver of the seed, she is free. And she, catch this, the Jerusalem above, she is the mother of us all. She has given birth to children, catch this, before her wedding day. She is found with children before her wedding day. This is powerful stuff. But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. For it has been written, rejoice, O barren, you who do not bear. Break forth and shout, you who have no birth pains. For the deserted one has many more children than she who has a husband. That is, Sarah has more children than Hagar will. And we, brothers, as Yitzhak, are children of the Spirit, the Jerusalem above, the promise. Guys, you understand what he's talking about here? He's saying, so how is there more children from the Jerusalem above than from the Jerusalem in the Middle East? Well, how many people have, just in sheer numbers, is that true? Are there more people that are born from above, from the Jerusalem above, than there are people trying to follow Torah as a spiritual birth? Yeah, a lot more. Exactly what this says is exactly what has happened. The Jerusalem from above is the mother of us all. Number, whatever it is, the next one. 9, thanks. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 22. Now that you have cleansed your lives in obeying the truth through the Spirit, that is Jerusalem, the mother of us all. So there's the Spirit that has given birth, but Jerusalem, the Spirit of Jerusalem, is the thing that gives us birth before she's married. Just like Miriam down here gives birth before she is married, or is found pregnant before she is married. Now that you have cleansed your lives in obeying the truth through the Spirit, to unfeigned brotherly love, love one another fervently with a clean heart, having been born again or born from above, not of corruptible seed, meaning the water, the flesh, but of incorruptible seed from the Spirit, who is the mother of us all, Jerusalem, through the living word of Elohim, through which comes the seed of life, which brings light, just like the earthly example of the seed of a man coming to the egg of a woman, and at the instant that that happens, light occurs, which remains forever. Because all born of the flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. The grass withers and its flower falls away, it dies. But the word of Elohim, the Spirit, the mother of us all, remains forever. And this is the word, the seed of life and light, announced as good news to you. Number 10. This is a patriarchal story of father and son. But you cannot get away from the feminine. It's there. Again, let me emphasize, I am not telling you that the spirit of Elohim is a woman. I'm not. Nor am I telling you the spirit of Elohim is a man. I'm not. I'm telling you we see dimly now as though through a mirror. We have an earthly example that is helping us to begin to wrap our minds around this. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. And Yah Elohim said, it is not good for man to be alone. I am going to make a helper for him as his counterpart. Verse 20b. But for the man there was not found a helper for him as his counterpart. So Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up flesh in its place, and the rib which Yahweh Elohim had taken from the man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man, where they are to be fruitful and multiply. What is the whole purpose of all of this? Better yet, who are we? We're children. We're children of Elohim. We say it all the time. He gave us the authority to become children of Elohim. We are the children. So who's the bride? Well, it was the Jerusalem below, but she became a harlot. Who's the bride? The Jerusalem above, of which we have all been born, for she is the mother of us all. And she has us, she is pregnant with us before the day she's married. Just like the story of Miriam. John chapter 14, verse 25. Here's the helper, though. The Spirit himself. Not talking about Jerusalem, the Spirit. These words I have spoken to you while still with you. But the helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you of all that I said to you. Let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. So-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so. Who taught the children? Who birthed the children? Mom did. Who taught the children? Mom did. Who changed the diapers? Mom did. Who fed the children? Mom did. Who got them their education? Mom did. Not saying dad doesn't do anything, but those were matriarchal things. But the story, now people are laughing, the story is a patriarchal story. So it's not that she's not there or that that office is not there. Forget about he, she, they, them, all the rest of that. Forget about that. This is an example. It's not that that entity is not there. It's there. It's just that the story is patriarchal. But the helper, the helpmate, has always been there. Because without the helpmate, there are no children. There is no seed given to Miriam. There are no children given through Jerusalem without the helper. And what does the helper Messiah tells us the helper is going to do for us? He's going to comfort us. He's going to teach us. My goodness. Just being sick this week, let me tell you something about men when they get sick. We are babies. We are terrible. All you ladies know I'm telling you the truth. Karen pampered me so good. I faked it for like 2 days just to get the pampering, and then I got really sick. But she pampered me, got all sorts of stuff, and she comforted me. You remember when you were a kid, you were sick and you were throwing up, and if you went to your dad and you told him you were sick and you were throwing up, you're like, throw you in the shower, throw you back in the bed. But if you told mom, what would mom do? Oh, my poor little baby. And she rub and niceties and you feel good. And she tell you a story and put you back to bed. And she taught you how to brush your teeth and wipe yourself and do all the things you're supposed to do. Who does that for us? The helper. He's going to teach us all things. Don't confuse the earthly example as a one-to-one thing with the heavenly. It's just the shadow to help us understand a bigger reality. Does everybody understand what I just said? It's important because I don't want you to go off the rails with this and start walking around saying, oh, the Holy Spirit's my mother. No, that's, come on. But does it fulfill that earthly role? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure it does. John 1:33, Yahushua answered and said to him, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born from above, he cannot see the kingdom of heaven, the Spirit. Here is our final verse, and I want you to wrap your mind around this. I think this wraps it all up. The Jerusalem above is the Lamb's bride. Not the Jerusalem on the earth. She's a harlot. She's a harlot, and my people are to come out of her. And she leads to slavery. But the Jerusalem above, she is the mother of us all. She's the Lamb's bride. She is the mother of us all. We are all, those of us who are born of the Spirit and of the water, as Messiah was, We are her children. Revelation chapter 29, verse 9. Come, I shall show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. Wait a minute. Whose wife is this? The Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great high mountain, and he showed me the great city, the set-apart Jerusalem, descending out of the heaven from Elohim. And who's in that bride? Because she's adorned as a bride. Who's in that city? Her children. Why is she adorned as a bride? Even though she already has children. Because that's the story we get down here on earth too. We are all those invited to the wedding banquet. To see the Lamb marry the bride. Does that make sense? I hope it does. This is a much bigger story than we ever thought. Marvelous, magnificent story. So there are female characters. Again, don't go crazy with that, but there are female characters to help us understand this patriarchal story. Because without the female character here on earth, there is no comparison here on earth for us to begin to understand that story. Which is why it's so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so. But when it comes to Mashiach, there are 5 women listed in the story. Because without them, there is no Messiah. It is the Spirit who births Messiah. It is the Spirit through the mother of us all that births all of us. And we are her children. We've been given the authority to become the children of Elohim. Those people invited to the wedding banquet. That is Abba's word for you guys for this morning. So I hope it helps you see the quote-unquote, I don't know what other word to use, but the quote-unquote Christmas story a little bit differently. It's not just about a virgin that happened to conceive before she got married. She is living a type, a shadow, an allegorical story of the reality that we will all one day know. We are those children, born of the Spirit and of the water at the same time. And now we are like him. We are of the water and we are of heaven at the same time. And there's going to come a day where we will see that wedding feast and take part in it and rejoice in it and be in that wonderful city, that wonderful bride with all of Elohim's children. What an amazing story. That's, for lack of a better term, the Christmas story, the Mashiach story. And all together, what are we called? Israel, the Prince of El. That's who we are. Abba, we thank you for your word. I ask and I pray that with my limited, fallible words, that I have not confused, but instead opened eyes, and if not, forgive. Let your Spirit be our teacher, our guide, open our understanding, confirm within us those things that are true to you. Help us to see them, to understand them, to walk in them, to know that we do not walk in the flesh. There is no way to attain spiritual birth just by the flesh. but that we need to be born from above, just as Mashiach was. We love you. We thank you. You are a great and awesome Elohim. To you be glory, honor, praise, and power. In the Master's name. Amen. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. You know what I want to do just real quick before we jet? I gotta see that one more time. That's the gospel. That's the gospel. Guys, join us on Monday for Morning Manna, Wednesday for Bible study, Friday for Hidden Manna. Unless, I don't know, some play comes and something happens and we can't do it. But barring all of that, we will be there. In the meantime, guys, have an awesome rest of the day. Say it with me, everybody. Shabbat. Shalom. Peace.